Hey, it's Donna Rudowitz, Divorcing Gracefully and Beyond, and Linda Downey, Organic Health Journey, here for our Tuesday night chat. Hi, Linda.
Hey, Donna, how are you?
I'm well. Other than the technical challenges that we have, we're good.
We had such a great idea to share with you guys, and then neither one of us could figure out how to make it work. So we're just going to share ourselves instead.
Well, you know what's so funny, and I'm so glad that we're having this conversation today, Linda, because the whole conversation on emotional frequency is so incredibly important. And for the past, so let's say 3 days prior to this, I've been having technical challenges, right? Just little things have been happening, and then technology is not my thing, so I get frustrated with it. And then next thing you know, a more technical challenge. Like yesterday, I was doing a live event for my tribe. Right before I'm about to finish the live event, I'm just going for my closing, my whole computer shuts down.
Oh, no.
So, and now, like you said, we wanted to share this beautiful chart that we have, and we just couldn't get it to work. So I think what this is an invitation for me, and I'm always one to be transparent and to share the real journey with everybody, is that you could be as actualized as we think we are, but we're just human beings, and everybody goes sideways and experiences a wobble. And when we experience the wobble, the universal feedback is going to show up. So I noticed my wobble starting to happen a few days ago, and the universal feedback is showing up. So now what's so great about this is, because I understand emotional frequency, I could stop it and reset.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that pretty cool how we could do that?
It's very cool. Can I share a quick thing with you?
Absolutely. I would love to hear.
Thank you. A while back, I guess in the fall, I was interviewed by a local organization that had supported when my daughter was alive and in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
She supported us a lot. And so with COVID and everybody, their world upside down, especially months ago when people were really, really in the grip of it, I feel like, well, maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of feel like people have gotten used to it a little more, but I could be wrong. But anyway, she's like, I just want you to come on and talk. She has a podcast and talk about, you lived in a situation for years where everything was unexpected and the world turned upside down. So right before we go on, there's a total tech debacle.
Yeah, I love that word. That's a perfect word, the tech debacle.
It was a tech debacle. And she's like, oh my gosh, this whole tech thing, like I could almost see like the beads of sweat, like a cartoon, and I was like, this is exactly what our conversation is. Life doesn't go as planned. It just never does.
Yeah.
So it's actually perfect that this is happening, because it's just, displaying how are we going to be about it? What are we going to do in the face of that, which isn't exactly emotional frequency, but it.
Well, I think, like you said, so emotional frequency, the way that I see it, is the vibrational frequency scale so it's the way that we're energetic human beings, right? So we're going to be, when we're in feelings and emotions of lack, of resentment, of guilt, of sorrow, of shame, those are the lower level frequencies. And that's where our body gets thrown into survival mode. And that's where the hormones from the brain start pumping into our system, right, of being in survival. And now we sort of pinch ourselves off from creativity. We pinch ourselves off from being able to see other options. Whereas if we're vibrating in the highest part of the frequency we possibly can be, which is love and gratitude and just peace and joy, right? When we're at that higher level of vibrational frequency, that emotional scale, that's where we're able to see miracles and synchronicities occur. That's where we're able to connect and hear the divine guidance that we may not have been able to hear in the past. Is that kind of the way that you see it too? Or how do you define it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I like my tribe can always count on me to get a little sciencey, because I like this.
I love science. I love spirituality, because spirituality truly is, I find, to be the key to freedom. I truly do. However, my brain loves the science to say that it's not woo-woo. This is not just stuff we're throwing up on the wall and hoping it sticks, that there's science to support it.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So this is how I visualize it. because people are, or at least I was for a long time, like, what does that mean? Energy frequency. What is that?
Mm-hmm.
But if we think about like at a molecular level, so we have our cells go even smaller into molecules, go even smaller into atoms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every atom of our body, but of everything that exists, every plant, every animal, even inanimate things, there's atoms.
Mm-hmm.
And there's energy that's moving at a frequency. That's how fast it's moving.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could, that's how the atomic bomb worked, right? They figured out that you could, I don't know what they figured out, but something with the atoms, right? And energy with the
collision of atoms, I think it was called, right?
Yes. I was like, oh, I'm going in a realm where I'm like,
but you know where, you know how, the only reason why I know that is because I live in New York in Long Island, and we have a laboratory that houses a atom collider where they do the collision.
Okay.
But
okay.
it's, yeah.
But the point is, right, it's the atoms and the molecules at the atomic level are moving. So in our body, in every cell, that's happening. So the frequency is how fast is that happening, right? And the faster it's happening, the higher the frequency. The slower it's happening, the lower the frequency. So our emotions hugely govern the speed of those frequencies. In the molecules of our gut, in the molecules of our nervous system. So what we're thinking and feeling is going to determine that. And then how fast those molecules or those atoms are moving has a great deal to do with a lot of how we experience our day, how our physicality is experienced, how our health.
Let me ask you this question. We may be kind of going off track, but I'm fascinated by the whole molecule thing. So I'm sitting at a desk, right? It's an inanimate object that I cannot put my hands through. I have a piece of glass sitting on a desk that I'm putting my computer on, right? So but water I could put my hands through. So what makes something kind of come into matter versus something that could be, kind of flown through like water?
Well, water is still matter, and this is definitely getting into a physics conversation that I don't want to like misrepresent myself. I need a physics conversation, but water is still matter. But you have matter that's in liquid form, matter that's in solid form, and matter that's in steam form, right? So water can be solid when it's at ice. That's like the temperature will change that for water. So it's still all matter.
I just didn't know if it had anything to do with the vibrational level of frequency, right? And how we are all, because like you said, everything is vibrating at a frequency. Our pen, the desk, our bodies, our heart, our organs, we're all vibrating at a certain frequency.
Yeah, I think there certainly is the frequency to it, but the example of water, that's just, it's liquid when it's at a certain temperature. It's solid when it's at another temperature, and then you couldn't put your hand through it.
And you know what? The reason why I kind of thought about this is I did an event yesterday for, hi, Diane. Diane's here. She says hi. I did an event yesterday, and one of the things that I brought into the event was the study of water and how the crystals change.
I just did this with my people.
Like, you did too?
Yes, I put up Dr. Emoto's.
That's what I did. I used Dr. Emoto's pictures. Yes.
Oh, high five me. Yes, I just did that. I just did that a couple of weeks ago.
Totally. Yes. And so maybe you could explain to whoever's listening now what that work is all about.
Okay. Dr. Emoto is a Japanese scientist who did work with the study of water. He has a few books, The Hidden Messages in Water. Yeah. And so what he did was he collected water all from the same source, and then he divided the water into different containers. And he looked at the water under a microscope, and he could see, just like the beautiful snowflakes, right? You can actually see every snowflake is individual and it looks like a crystal. And so then what he did was he gave messages to the water, and the water gave messages back. Really, he said words. He either said, I love you, you're beautiful, you're worthy, kind words, and then looked at the water under a microscope. He also then, in other containers, same source of the water, said negative words. I hate you, you're ugly. Even
Mhm.
gave it names like Hitler. And all of the water in those containers changed and became not beautiful, became ugly. And
Yeah, it became not a, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
then what was so interesting was in some of when I was like pulling stuff up for my talk about that a couple weeks ago, I didn't realize this. He actually prayed then over the
Oh,
water that had
I
been.
didn't know that. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I didn't know that either. And I
Yeah.
found that, and he prayed, and it showed pictures the before and after the prayer, and the water
Wow.
changed. So not only did the water change when he said bad things to it, but he could make it beautiful again with prayer. And so we were left with, if our bodies are 70% water,
Percent water. Yes.
right, in every cell, and you're saying to
Yes.
yourself, oh, I'm such a jerk. Oh, look at my body. I look fat in this. Or your parents say to you when you're little, what's wrong with you? What are you, stupid? Or somebody else says
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That the water in our cells hears that, and it actually changes. And so by practicing our emotional frequency,
Frequency. It goes back to the emotional frequency. Yeah.
yep, then you can change the water in your cells. So that's in relationship to the water, which was a very cool. You can read his books and see the pictures; they're amazing. But we're even talking bigger than just the water, but the actual emotional frequency, how it affects all aspects of our body. And I love the thought of our heart frequency, because that
Yes.
actually radiates out from our body. There's a field around us, and there's
And isn't it so appropriate? We're coming to Valentine's Day, right? I mean, we're in February, the month of Valentine's Day, and the heart frequency, and
yeah, that's right. I didn't even think of that, because we are already in February. It's the 2nd.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, so when you are in the higher frequencies that you talked about when we started, and the heart is living in a place of joy and gratitude and appreciation and compassion, then the frequency is emanating out from the heart, and it can actually fill a field. There's
yeah.
photographic technology that
Again, I love the science of it, right? It's proven. Yeah.
yes, because you can see it. And then your field is touching people when they come within like 4 feet of you. And we know that to be true, because you get a feeling from someone when they come in the room.
1,000%. How often have you had that happen where, I've walked into a room where I realized I want to leave that room immediately because you could just the tense energy, right? Or just the person. And I've also walked into a room where you never wanted to leave because it just felt so comfortable and so warm and you really felt connected.
Yeah.
And, I think the vibrational frequency that we're talking about and the emotional frequency is so important in really in a woman's healing of love towards herself, of love towards others, of creating a path of the life that she's meant to live, that desire, that soul desire that is putting her on her path. And there's something here that that I kind of was thinking about that I have in front of me, which is it's coming up with when it comes to emotional frequency, it's coming up with the global belief system of that anything is possible for us, that we could do whatever we set our minds to, and then life supports us in experiencing and expressing whatever we truly desire, and anything is absolutely possible for me.
Yes, that's a belief system that's going to really alter how you move through your life and what you attain in your life. And then I also want to just make a note for people, because I work with health. And what I've learned is that if we don't address the emotional frequency, we can't really get better.
I think it's the same thing with divorce and separation. If we don't address the emotional frequency of the soul fracture of what that divorce, and it's not the divorce that we're healing the soul fracture from. It's the years prior where she may have felt abandoned or betrayed, or minimized, or her confidence was stripped away, or the self-worth was stripped away. So this is not, this is the emotional frequency isn't something that happens in an event. It's almost like a slow drip over time.
Mm.
It's kind of like the Grand Canyon,
Yeah.
It's
the same slow drip with health, because you don't just, if you grow up in a household where you don't feel safe going home because maybe there's alcoholism, or your parents' relationship isn't good, or one of your parents is maybe like verbally abusive to you or something, over time, that's a slow drip. And now in your 20s and 30s, you've got an autoimmune condition. It doesn't just happen. Yes, there may be a genetic predisposition, but the immune system can't do its job when your atoms are moving at a frequency of.
And is that the subconscious part of our brains that are replaying these messages without us even knowing that we're replaying it? And that's what the atoms in our body are responding to?
Yeah. I think a lot of people up here go, oh no, I'm fine. That was 30 years ago. I know. Or even if it's something that you could say, I know that person didn't mean it. I know my mom loved me, even though she was like just nasty a lot. It was because she was stressed. You may know that here as an adult, but the 5-year-old here, has, I'm not worthy, or my mom doesn't love me. And maybe there's shame now.
This is actually fascinating on the emotional frequency for women who are divorced, separation, or, relationship fractures, because what ends up happening many times is after the divorce, she'll say, yeah, I'm good, right? I've gotten over it. I went to therapy. I feel good. And then only to find yourself in a very similar relationship that she had left, right? That her divorce, like marrying her ex-husband 10 times over. And then only to find out that, that relationship ends to go into another. So it's the attraction of the same types of things. And a matter of fact, it's the attraction of exactly what they don't want, right? Because like you said, up here is only 5%. Down here is the 95%.
Exactly. And it might even be the attraction to how the father was.
Yes.
Right. Sometimes when dads are great, we end up marrying really great men. Sometimes when dads are not so great, we get attracted to the guys who are not so great.
Yeah. And isn't it so now, because this is like really, my mind is like, I'm going on all of these things, is subconsciously, if you're vibrating at a lower scale, even though you think you're at a higher scale, but subconsciously you're vibrating at a lower scale, like attracts like, right? So you're going to attract that same level that's on the lower scale. So if we want to break the pattern, we've got to do the work to increase our vibrational frequency. So we bring like attracting like at a different level.
Yeah, because it's not about what you're thinking, it's about what you're feeling. Because you can have positive thoughts. You can fill your day with positive affirmations, but if you don't feel them, makes no difference. If you're going, yeah, I have the love of my life is going to come. I'm just doing that because that's what you do, relationships, right? Or I have a great, vibrant, healthy body. But inside you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I have that diagnosis. Oh my gosh, when am I going to start to not even be able to do my job? When am I going to be in pain every day? Like that's what you're feeling. Even if you're doing the positive affirmations, the frequency is coming from here.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah. And that becomes the identity, right? You embody that.
Yes, you do. You start to look for evidence to support it subconsciously, right? And then you start to believe that it's so, and that's the only option. So it all comes really back to the emotional frequency. And I think so the tech debacle that we were having was to try to pull up a chart to show everybody. So I don't have it memorized, but I think the lowest one is shame, right? I think it is at the bottom.
Yes.
I thought was so interesting.
Guilt and shame, I think, are pretty low.
Yeah. And guilt and shame, I think a lot of people, I think a lot of women constantly feel guilty or shameful. Shameful maybe about their body. Ugh, I have these 5 extra pounds I want to take off. Ugh, my hair looks so awful. just shame about
Yeah.
who they are, because we have this message that we're supposed to look and be perfect.
And we're not supposed to hurt other people's feelings, and don't get too big because, you might make someone else feel small, and
or say yes to everything. Oh, I feel so bad, I'm going to say no to her. Like the school committee, or your friend who's like, can you just
right, or the feeling of being obligatory. I have to, like thinking to yourself, I really don't want to be on this school committee. I really don't. And then getting to the school and then being sort of hoodwinked in, and then being, being obligatory. Well, I guess I have to do it.
So
right?
Now you've got the like, not wanting to feel like that guilty, but then you're also now resentful.
Yes.
You end up saying yes. So resentful is just a hair above on the scale, right?
Yep.
So you're really hanging out a lot in those lower level frequencies.
Yep.
And sometimes, or depression is also very low. Like just,
Yep.
and that makes people feel depressed.
Depression. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So sometimes just getting, I think, ourselves up to like, okay, now I'm angry because I'm like, I am not doing this anymore. I'm going to like.
Anger is actually a higher emotion than shame and guilt. Anger is good. We're moving up the scale.
Yeah. And it'll have you take action as opposed to be apathetic.
Yeah.
And then from there, you can go, okay, you let the anger move through. That's the other thing with emotional frequency. If you're not allowing the negative emotions to move through,
yes,
then they're going to stay stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about not ever being angry. It's not about never being sad, right? It's about feeling it and then moving
through it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you can move up. So people like Jesus and Buddha and Gandhi, they were at the highest level. They, lived in a realm of unconditional love. Mother Teresa for people. So that's, in my mind, the goal, is to just keep going. How can I get myself back to love? What do I need to release?
Yeah, I think that's the question. What can I do to get realigned with love? And I think one of the things, at least that I believe very strongly in, is going back to that belief system that we really do believe that we can have the life and the health that we want.
Yes. Yeah, if you're just going to be a victim to it, like this is just what happens. I used to know a guy when I was young, what did he always say? He was somebody I went to high school with, and he would say, it's a dog eat dog world, and everybody's out to get you.
Yeah.
Like that's what he
and so he's literally reprogramming and coding his brain.
Right.
Yes.
So if you're going to just be like, I'm a victim, this is how it is, there is nothing else possible, right? It's you just...
Well, and I think that's something, Linda, which is so important, is that we don't even have to necessarily believe it right away that anything is possible right away. In order to truly manifest, we do have to sort of embody that. But in the beginning, when we're sort of learning how to get up this emotional level of frequency, is knowing that there's a law in place. The universal law states that we really can have and be and do whatever it is we want. That is a universal law that's available to everybody. Everybody has access to it. Everybody who's living in the human form has access to it, and I think it's being able to borrow another's belief system long enough to create your own.
And what's really great is that there is evidence throughout history. I mean, Jesus said, and I am by no means a Bible. I know as much about the Bible as I do about physics, right? Just enough, but not enough to really really give you some significant stuff. But Jesus said things like, whatever I do, you also can do. If you believe in me, then you can have it. Ask and it is given. There's many passages throughout the Bible that really refers to this. It's, you can believe. He was saying, I'm not doing anything miraculous. I'm just doing it with the belief of knowing.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to, having, kind of acknowledging the doubt, but then giving it its place, acknowledging explanations or disputes, because your brain's going to want to tell you all of these other things. And it's being willing to do the work to update your internal maps.
Yes. And it does take some work. It takes some dismantling. And I think the very first step is awareness. Like, wow, I really do
Yes.
spend.
I love that word dismantling, because I think that's really what it is. It's like, because there's been a whole structure and infrastructure that's been built around internal maps and that have been integrated, that we've formed, that we've created stories around, that we've built identity around. And and I think that in the past, when you just try to go to look at those and say, okay, how can I redo my maps, it could be very scary, because even though we know that's not a good place for us, we've built an identity around it. And I think when you sort of allow yourself to relax and accept into the possibility, and then to enter into a state of curiosity of, wow, isn't this interesting? Like you said, like, I've noticed that, when I go, like, for instance, if it's your tribe, when I really go to make the commitment to incorporate a healthier eating system, or maybe to drink more water during the day, I notice this is what happens. What, isn't that interesting? And you become curious instead of contradictory, or instead of accusatory or judgmental. It's bringing in a level of curiosity to help update these maps.
Yeah. And I think being open-minded, when we think we already know everything there is to know.
Yes.
And I say that because I was pretty good at that.
Yep. Yeah.
I can remember really big chunks of time in my life. Like, no, I know. So, and what I really know now is that I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's exactly it. We don't know. Yep.
So, so I love that you correlated it to February and to Heart Month, and to, where our emotions are in our heart. And
so what would you say, Linda, if we, just to close today's conversation, do you have like a top 3 things that you could say to help elevate? What are the things that you do to help elevate that emotional level of frequency to, get to the higher vibrational level?
So I think music is fabulous.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, music can really, just change your whole state, especially if you start hearing songs, my high school prom song, or, when I first fell in love, like our song that we used to have, right? So, can't remember the guy, but I remember the song.
I forget about the guy. The song is hilarious.
but, making a playlist of the songs that just light you up, and then playing it, like making sure that you play it all the time. I used to not play music a lot because I used to be very focused on what I was doing. So, but now I make sure that, like, music is on in the background. I also, in the realm of music, I also play certain frequencies of sound therapy, Hertz frequencies. So the solfeggio frequencies. And so for healing, it's 528. You can Google it. Just do solfeggio, SOFREGGIO. And 528 is for healing. 417 is to release negative emotions.
Wow. So, I love that. I'm going to do some research on that tonight.
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of work. As you know, my daughter passed 1.5 years ago, and my marriage ended, has all of that. So I've been doing a lot of work on grief. Yeah. On moving through grief and all of that. So that's why I happen to know that one. 417 is to release those types of things, and anger, grief and anger. So music, I think, is great. Your physiology is really important. So especially for me, I get stuck here in front of the computer for a long time, and then I'm like, next thing.
Yeah, me too. I'm leaning in. It's like nice to, to kind of go back to shoulders up,
get up, do some movement,
and move around.
Yeah, set your alarm on your phone if you need to, just to remember.
Yeah,
do it. I do that, and then the other thing that is newer for me is making sure that I every day do some self-care. Like, if that's take some time out of the day and meditate. I do, because I start my day very early, as I know you do too. And I start my day with meditation, but I also, in the middle of the day, will sort of stop and do another meditation, some breathing stuff, just to release tension, just to all of that. So I like those 3 things.
I love those 3. I think those are beautiful.
Laughter too. Laughter's huge.
Yes.
There's a book, Norman Cousins wrote a book, Anatomy of an Illness, I think it's called.
It sounds familiar. I don't know if I read it, but it does sound very familiar to me.
He used vitamin C and laughter to heal from, I think it was a cancer diagnosis.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yes. Yes.
But just laughter, because laughter, again, that's joyful. If you're cracking up, you're not angry.
You're not angry. Yes, you can't be angry and cracking up at the same time, right? I'd like to say you can't think two thoughts at the same time. And I think, when we could tap into the voice of our true nature, the voice of that still small voice inside that we all have, and especially as women, I think that's one thing that every woman I could speak to will say that's that sixth sense, right? We know it. We just know things. It's that voice. And asking ourselves the question, are we tapping into the voice of our true nature, or are we tapping into the voice of our limitation, right? Are we tapping into where our divine guidance in our heart is leading us? Or are we tapping into where our conditions, thoughts, patterns, and beliefs have created us? And I like to say the one thing, especially coming in February, I like to sort of align with romancing my future instead of my past. Becoming so in love with my future and living in the space of my future and romancing that and falling in love with that versus the past.
Yeah, which the past, if you're going over and over and over the past,
we'll create more of it.
You'll just
create more. And if you think about it, speaking of, I know we're almost ready to go, but if we think about the energetic levels of frequency, the past, when it's filled with grief and sadness and resentment and hurt, that has a frequency associated with it. So if you're looking in the past and you're tapping into that, then you're associating with that lower level of frequency.
Right, for sure.
By proxy. Diane wants to know how you spell Solfeggio again. So spell it for me and I'll put it in the comments.
I think, Diane, it's S as in Sam, O, F as in Frank, Reggio, Solfeggio.
Sounds like a cheese, an Italian cheese. Sounds like I should be in Italy.
Solfeggio and the red wine.
Solfeggio on your pasta? Yes, I would. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's right. So 528 is for healing, and 417 is for releasing negative energies. Those are the two that I know, but there's all kinds. Like you can say what's the frequency for whatever you want to say.
Yeah. And I think, going into that, I also listen to when I'm just, again, in my office and I'm working, but I'm not necessarily working with a client, I listen to binaural beats.
Yes. Yeah. It's the same thing. And a lot of those, like, I'll play the Solfeggio hertz to go to bed.
Yes.
They can sound very much like chanting monk.
Chanting. Yeah. Yeah.
Or it's very soothing, and those similar in a way to the binaural beat. So yeah. So Donna,
and I think, I don't know about, I think one last thing, and maybe you could say one last thing that you would like to leave, for people to think about. And what I would ask you is, you had said something, Linda, that really stuck with me, which is the first step into this whole energetic vibrational frequency and emotional frequency is awareness. And the battlefield of the mind is where we lose. And it's being aware of where am I at war with myself?
Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily being at war with anybody else. It's really almost many times it's at being at war with myself. So it's and in order to increase that emotional state of frequency is going into that curiosity stage and saying, wow, like I noticed I went to the supermarket, I went to get this, it wasn't there, and I just had an all-out temper tantrum. Like, what did I make that mean? Because when you go to the supermarket and you say, okay, I want to get eggs. And then you go and you realize, oh my gosh, there's no eggs left. And then you're like, oh man, I can't believe I didn't go. I'm so mad at myself. I knew I should have went earlier in the morning.
Well, right? What's wrong with the store that they don't have eggs? What's wrong with these people?
And we begin to go in these, it's that battlefield, which is, coming into like, oh, I'm really becoming aware that really, honestly, if I look at it, when I was at the store, I realized that I needed to pick up X, Y, and Z, and I ran into a friend of mine who I hadn't seen in 20 years. So my whole reason for going to the store may not have been to get the eggs. It may have been to run into my friend, you know? So we become curious. And when we could become aware of those places from a curiosity standpoint and where we're at war, now we could maybe release them and allow them to flow through us. So that's what I would like to leave people just kind of thinking about. What's one thing that you'd like to leave people to think about today?
I actually have 2 things. Can I say 2 things?
You could say as many things as you like. They're not limited.
They're related to
unlimited abundance.
Okay, good. Thank you. So one thing is, now what were they?
Now you have to remember them.
Yes. So one thing is that we get very addicted to those types of responses.
Yes.
So that, like, I can't believe it. You know, you're driving in the car and you decide that the car next to you is a jerk. Like, look at how they're driving. They should be driving the way you would be driving. They didn't put their.
Do that? You drive by and then you literally have to just look at the person to see.
Like, you're an idiot because you didn't do what I thought you should do, right? So that, you know, or even we do it with our families. There's this like judgment and control that is so easy to. It's very addictive to live there.
And it's also a mirror, Linda, right? And this is because when you're controlling another person, then it's the opportunity to ask yourself, like, if I'm being critical to this other person, where am I being critical to myself?
Yeah. So I would just say, think about, wow, am I really addicted to this type of response? Because then it takes a little work to break any addiction. It's not just an easy thing, right? You want to practice it daily to break that addiction. And then the second thing, which kind of goes hand in hand with that, is it can feel really good to be judgmental about other people, or to make other people wrong, because then we get to be right. So if you are constantly saying, oh, my mother-in-law is so blah, 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 or my kids, you know, no matter how many times I tell them they can't pick up their clothes or whatever it is, it can feel really good to do that because it's addictive. And
justifies. It justifies an internal, you know, story for sure.
So I think that a good question to ask yourself is, what am I getting out of staying in these feelings? And is it really worth it? Is, you know, feeling good in this moment because I'm judging someone.
What's the payoff? What's the payoff to me?
What's the payoff? And is it really worth it if I look at the big picture of my health and how I want to create my future and the experience I want to be having on a daily basis? Is this the experience that I want to be having?
I love that. I think brilliant. Yeah. Brilliant. All right. Well, guys, that brings us to the close of another wonderful conversation.
So much fun, Donna.
Thank you. So much fun. All right. So let's put here in the comments, if you want to find Linda, where do you want me to drive them again? OrganicHealthJourney.com or?
Organic Health Journey is my Facebook page. I rarely go to the website. I mean, the website is there, but I would say or my email or Organic Health Journey at gmail.com. That's my email. So that's
Organic Health Journey at Gmail. And if you want to just find me, you could just go to Donna Rudowitz.com. I have a quiz on my website. That's a relationship quiz that just tells you where you're at. So it's free. So whoever wants to do the quiz, go ahead and get on there and take the quiz. It's fun.
What if you're not in a relationship? Can you take it anyway?
Yeah, take it anyway. Sure. Why not? Yeah.
I'm like a quiz person. I want to see my score, but I don't know if it
All right, everybody. Mwah. Love you. See you later. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.